Authors should be busy, engaged, interactive, dealing with people. If you're an introvert, find your own way of doing that. But that's the only way that you'll get the different experiences that are going to enrich you, so that when you then turn to go write your characters and write your stories, you're an ever growing and enriching source of material.
Hello and welcome to the Catholic Homeschool Podcast. I'm Paola, your host, and today I am thrilled to have Dominic de Souza. Dominic and I have been working together on so many projects, and this one's, I think, one very close to our hearts that we really wanted to spend a little bit of time talking together, but it's also another way for me to share. Dominic, who is, I'll begin with his bio here, and you'll see why this is the perfect partnership we have formed that we are so excited to share. So let's begin, and we begin with Dominic is a young Catholic dad and novelist, passionate about world building and Catholicism. Dominic is a graduate from the Writers Institute for Children's Literature, self-published a children's novel, and works as a full-time marketer and graphic designer. He's married with a small girl and a small corgi. He wrote his first novel at 13, self-published at 18, and finished a sequel. He's written scores of short stories, hundreds of articles on marketing, branding, hosted 4 podcast shows, and launched 2 online communities, SmartCatholics, and the newest one, CatholicAuthor. Welcome, Dominic. I am so happy to have you here today.
Well, thanks for having me, Paola. Good to be here.
Yes. So I just began this by saying kind of a little bit of a teaser here. We have a new partnership, and it's one that I think came out of our working together when we were doing the Catholic Homeschool, the last conference, which was geared predominantly for teenagers. We call that life after high school, all about that discernment, all about teenagers really taking time to figure out what are their gifts, their passions, their interests, the things that God is calling them to give to the world. And in that, we did an art contest. Oh my goodness, the flood of talent, the ability of these teenagers to give their heart and soul. It inspired us to say we need more vehicles, more ways to have our teenagers, in particular our Catholic homeschool teenagers, to express themselves in the beauty of the arts. And in one of those areas is writing. So let's begin first with even just a little, we'll go first from your own story and being able to tell us what that little journey for you was, and how is it at 13 you wrote your first story. So give us a little clue into Dominic as a teenager.
A complete dork with a big head of hair, big aviator glasses. Grew up in Australia. And I absolutely loved reading books, always reading books. And then there was a point where a light bulb went off, and I thought, I can start telling stories. I can start writing stories. And so I started doing that feverishly. And then one day I bought a book from a secondhand store, and I saw a photo in the back of a young boy with tousled hair. And he was only 13 years old, and he'd written his first novel, the one I was holding, and his school teacher had helped him publish it. And now I have no idea what the readership was like, but I saw that and I thought, if he can do it, I can do it. And so I grabbed a ballpoint pen, and I just decided I'm just going to write a novel about 2 kids basically going into a Narnia-like world, and the girl gets captured and he has to gather up a bunch of enchanted weapons to rescue her. And then it all compounds and sort of things get more dangerous. And it was a real kind of a wish fulfillment sort of story. I think it only clocks in at like 50 pages. But for me, it was that sense of completion, that sense of having actually done it, even if it was small, and the hours just spent handwriting it out in a couple of exercise books or copywriter books. When I was about 18, I typed it all up and expanded on it a little bit, and then wrote the sequel. And now I've not published the sequel, and I plan to go back and rewrite everything as a brand new series. Like any writer, you're always trying to rewrite stuff. So, but what it did is it really grounded me in this love of being creative, of taking everything that I'm reading and thinking about and integrating, and then turning it into stories. So in the last sort of 5-6 years or so, 7 years, I went to work for a high school, well, for Seton Home Study School. And while I was there, I was given an opportunity to revive the Bailey Bulletin. And it used to be just a 4-page newsletter to keep high school students connected or just knowing what was going on. And I thought, what if we just expanded this into a quarterly newsletter, and we did contests, and we wrote, stories, and students shared about themselves. And the management was like, well, go ahead and give it a try. Just, see what happens. And the response blew me away. And that became my absolute number one favorite thing to do. Again, here's the reader and the writer. Like, I just got to sit back and read stories and then encourage people, here, think about this and take your story this way. And some of that expertise as having graduated from this 2-year course for the Writers Institute, then that came into play, thinking about characterization, thinking about how to write and so on. And like our art contest that we did, you and I, Paola, the quality of the stories that came in was just incredible. And with every contest, more kids would participate, and they absolutely loved it. And they would just sit on that website and they would just hit refresh to see if a new comment came in, or if other students were chatting or engaging.
So was there one of the things I'd love to know from you, and I know I have a daughter too, who's always, in many ways, her imagination is so strong. She was always, even like as lights would go out, she was telling stories to her siblings. And I know I have a son who's an artist, and in many ways he did the same thing with his brothers. The girls' room, boys' room. Were the stories rattling around in your head? And how did you actually get to some sort of a structure, or even understanding how a story is formed? And, I think of it, it's like, where do you even begin?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think every writer is going to have a slightly different process. For me, there are constantly stories going on. Like, I'll watch a movie and I'll think, oh, I would want to tell the story this way, and I want to recombine the characters in this way. So there's always stories going on, which means there's always bits and ends of paper and notepads and text documents and files and Word docs and stuff, just trying to remember all of this stuff. And then I'll come back to it later to organize it. So there's always ideas. And the more you read, which is what writers need to do, you need to read, you need to watch movies, you need to get out and do stuff and talk with people, and you need to write, not just the one thing up in an attic somewhere.
Yeah. So would you say in your high school, and so you were homeschooled for, as you were growing up too, did you have opportunity to hone your craft as part of your homeschooling, or is it something that you did really solely as an extracurricular activity, or something like it's in me, I do it all the time?
Yeah, that for me, it was largely that. My mom had, there were 8 of us kids, and so she didn't have a lot of time to think about extracurriculars. But as I got older, it was just something I did because I wanted to, and I invested time and research into it. And when I discovered the internet, which was kind of a new thing for us as kids growing up, I found a couple of websites, one where I could go submit my stories online. For me, that was just transformative. People encouraging me or making compliments or pointing out, this was kind of weak over here. For me, that was like water in a desert, to have that kind of constructive feedback. And then I would invest just as much time in going back and reading other stories and trying to invest, back into this online community of storytellers. And then I'd find other people who would give writing advice. And I downloaded this one guy's, probably his entire website, and I would reread and print off all of his articles because I wanted to be a really good writer. And I'd look at all of my favorite authors, and then I would try to emulate them, and then sometimes print them off and pass them around at the parish or the homeschool co-op, and loved that sense of other people spending time with something I'd imagined and really, really enjoying it, or just digging into it with me and brainstorming it and helping me make it better. And that's what I think worked so well with the Bailey Bulletin, was that creating that space for not just kids, but for teens to be creative, together. So that's why Catholic Author was relaunched this just within the last 4 months as a space for us to come together and actually start doing this together.
Yeah,
There really isn't
I know
anything.
I want to unpack exactly what that includes, because it's very exciting. And I think, but it is something that you personally have experienced. It's something that I think one of the things I hear from what you're talking about, your journey, is not unlike many other people's journeys. And in many ways, you talk about writing as a creative process. Let's talk just a little bit about that creativity versus, because when we talk about homeschooling, and you said that busy moms, we're talking about the 3 R's. Well, where does creativity fit into a person's education in your mind?
I see it as an extremely foundational thing, with the caveat that there are different kinds of people. So not every kid is going to want it. Not every kid is going to need it. But I think almost every kid, when they're very young, is drawn towards creativity, migrates towards colors, shapes, and sounds. And some of that creativity is in physical activity, bike riding or hiking or getting up on the roof and, making tree houses. There's just different ways of expressing it, but it's discovering that the beginning of that journey of self-discovery of what are my interests, what are my contributions. There's a little article I put on the Catholic Author blog, the idea that you are a key that unlocks something in the world. And that's kind of the role, the job of your life, is to figure out, well, what is that? What is it that I'm in love with that I don't know yet? And we actually don't we don't create our interests or our passions. We just discover them. And that's kind of the journey of life, is to kind of keep putting yourself in different situations and trying different things to find out what it is you love, and then maybe to start thinking about why. So I would think creativity is a hugely important thing when you're young. And then as you get older, you begin to realize or gravitate towards certain things. But for those who are gifted with the specific acts of creativity, such like the arts maybe, or creative writing or dancing, that sort of thing, people who understand, or song or music, what you're learning is not just a craft. You're learning a language. You're learning a second tier of language of how to think about the world, how to see the world, how to talk about things that are important, things that you don't see in the ordinaries of daily life. You're starting to think more, and especially here, I'm talking as a Catholic author, or just as an author at all. You're thinking more about what are the great themes of life? What are the great things that happen, behind the scenes? There's stuff that's happening on stage, but the author is the one who thinks about, well, why does that happen? And why does that matter to me? And what kind of stories come out of my own interests, and because I want to be able to share that, So I think creativity is critical.
So our forms of expression as human beings, our connection to, and in many ways it is that deep soul connection, the image of God in us, has this longing to understand and know the world, to know the Creator better. And I'm sensing again, it's that expression of that journey we all have, in that way of really trying to not control the world, but to discover and wonder about it. And it seems to me, again, like you pointed out so well, we do that in different ways. And I wanted to speak about just quickly, I always talk about this. There's books by Sir Ken Robinson that talks about being in your element. For some people, Dominic, writing a story at 13 seems really impossible. So let's talk a little bit about that, how it just seems like at a certain point, can we give people that ability, the permission to work in their element, in their area where they feel such a strong, like this comes naturally, this is interest, I like to think about homeschooling gives us the freedom to do that.
I think it does. Homeschooling gives parents and students a unique freedom for the student to self-pace, and it allows the parent the opportunity to just organically observe what the kid is interested in, where they want to put their attention. And what ends up happening is when you give the space for the love of learning to flourish, then that bleeds over into everything. And the child then has the freedom to want to learn, and maybe even be good at everything. But again, there's that organic space for the parent to watch the child and then intentionally invest in the areas where they are showing a particular aptitude, a particular energy and interest, and want to develop. That was a blessing for me as a homeschool kid, and I think it's a wonderful thing for others.
So opportunity for other kids came as a heart project for us. Exactly. So let's unpack then, what is Catholic Author, and what is in particular Teen Catholic Author, and what are some of the things we can look forward to and people can take advantage of?
Sure. So Catholic Author is the creative community for the modern Catholic author. It started as a place for adults, so 17 and older. From any background, you're welcome. Come on in and join us. And the idea was to give us an actual community, not just a forum, but an actual social network, an actual place for us to come together and give and get feedback, share what we're working on, share resources. And then in the adult group, we'll talk more about things like, how do I build my author brand? How do I, that more of that marketing kind of thing, because that's more important. But then in conversations with you, began to realize, well, there's the teens, and the art contest did so well. What if we create a home in Catholic Homeschool Online for teens to come together? So that's what Catholic Author Teens is. It's a space, if you're between 13 and 17, to do basically the same thing: give and get feedback, get mentorship, share your works in progress, brainstorm ideas, meet and make friends, build your writing portfolio, that sort of thing. So what we decided to do is we knuckled around and tried to figure out what is the fun that we're going to have throughout the year. How can we structure this? And so what we're now doing is we have monthly genre challenges. Every month, there's a different genre that we think about, like fairy tales or science fiction, fantasy, mythology. Thrillers is later in the year. And the idea is each of us naturally gravitate to one or another genre. There's probably a really good reason for that, and there's a good reason why genres exist. But having a challenge in each month allows us to think more about what each genre does, what it's meant to accomplish, what are its parameters, so that we then know how to mix and match them, with better adeptness, with a little more competence. So that's what happens every month. And then to make things more interesting, every 3 months we have a contest. And right now we're in the middle of the fairy tale contest. It ends end of February. So everyone is welcome who's a member of the community to write a short fairy tale story and then submit it to the contest. And then what'll happen is everyone that gets accepted into the tier 1, the round 1, they get direct mentorship or direct feedback and recommendations on here's how you can make your story stronger. Then it goes to the public vote. Everybody in the community gets to vote on who gets to the top 3. And then at the top 3, we have our partner or friend or sponsor of the community will come in and pick number 1. In this case, it's JP Catholic, and they're the perfect university because they're all about the creative arts. So they're going to help nominate the finalists. And then what happens to the finalists in each contest? Well, they get published in our journal. And the journal will be a beautifully designed printable journal that people can then purchase and have it delivered straight to their door. All of the stories will be in it. And then any other stories of honorable mention from the other months. So that's what Catholic Author is. There's this adult community built within the SmartCatholics social network. And then in the Catholic Homeschool Online social network, there's the teens group. And we do encourage parents to be involved with your teens, read their entries, make sure that you're happy with them, you're endorsing them.
Couldn't some of those challenges and will the challenges be posted each month? So we have, just to kind of summarize again, I think, again, it was born from your own experience, and that idea that feedback community elevates your ability to really hone your craft in something that's inherent in you. And we both know that there are teens that are just hungry to tell stories and be able to do this and want to meet other fellow teens to do this. So there's the element of peer reviews, who's doing the like critique, and how is that going to work?
So the critique aspect is, so first there's the peer level of feedback, and anybody at any time can write up something, share a story, share a chapter of something that they're writing. They can share that at any time for peer review so that each student can support each other and read. And one of the cardinal laws that we have in the Catholic author community is zero negative feedback. We don't allow it. Please don't ever do it. It's always positive. It's always helpful and constructive. Never, I don't like that, or that wasn't any good, or something. So everybody help us keep that happening. But then there's the next level, which is the mentors. Right now, there's myself. We have another one coming in, Katie Campbell, who's a graduate from JP Catholic, who's working very closely and helping to build all of this. What the mentor is, mentors support providing feedback during the contests primarily. So anybody who makes it to the top 10 gets that one-to-one mentoring. So if you're somebody who's showing real promise and you're entering in all the 4 contests, then you'll get that feedback to help you get to the next round, to polish it, to improve your story.
But tell us a little bit about Katie, her background too, and how we got, and if anybody's not familiar with Katie Campbell, and I know you just did an interview with her as well, it is posted in the community. So yeah,
if anybody wants to meet her, Katie and I did an interview on our podcast, Silhouettes of the Truth. You can check that out. And then she and I also did a longer discussion on what's the difference between fairy tales and mythology. And so you can get a sense of where she comes from. She's somebody who loves fairy tales. She loves writing short stories. She's, what does she call herself? She's a humorist. She loves the weird. She loves Far Eastern fairy tales, Baltic fairy tales. And she loves sort of twisting them and making them humorous. And
and she's an alumni, right, of GP2. Is that correct? Right. Yeah. And she was one of our keynote speakers at the Life After High School event we had just this past fall. I loved her talk. And she's published
like 2 or 3 books now.
Right.
Compilations.
So I know that there will be other authors coming through, published authors that had similar journeys, even to Katie, to you, that teens can connect with as we move through. And this is just the beginning. We also, Dominic had talked about it in the different creative arts. I know our producer Jay is putting together one for music composition. We do have also in the works an artist group as well. And we're talking with Catholic University of America, doing an entrepreneurship group and all sorts of these kind of ways to build in the incredible talents and desires of our young teens as they're coming into the world, to be able to test the waters before they even get into the college track, if that's what they want, or wherever it's part of that discernment process, that part of giving of themselves to the world. So the contest, and again, how can people get connected with the contest and all of that at this point, but and get involved?
Sure. Just head over to CatholicAuthor.us. Over on the left, you'll see a menu that says blog, and then you can just press the contest option right there on the blog. And then all you have to do to participate is just start your 7-day free trial today. And then it's only $5 a month, either for the students or for the teen group or for the adult group. And then just write your story and just post it right in there.
So now there's a component to this. I know you talked about, you have this like manifesto that you mentioned, and there is a component to it to be actually, so as a homeschool parent, I know for me, it's like time is tight and where is this going to go? Can I make it count as school, this kind of work?
Yeah, especially if your teen or your student is going to be spending a lot of time on this, then it makes a lot of sense for it to be more valuable to homeschool parents, for them to feel like they're kind of getting something out of all that time. And also the student can actually make progress in it. So this is why we've launched the creative writing program for high school teens. And it's something that right now only exists with Catholic Homeschool Online. And it's not very complex. All it is, it's the student will write one story every month. So they participate in every genre challenge. So write one story a month. But in doing so, they submit every story to a mentor. Right now, that's myself as the first one. As we continue to grow, we'll bring in other mentors. And then at that point, student can probably pick the mentor that they want to hear more from because they like their attitude or their approach or something. But that's largely it. It's a way for the student to get direct feedback on every story that they write so that they make progress throughout the year. They improve different areas of the writing craft, of how they communicate. And big reason why we see this as valuable, it's not just having the fun. They're getting that feedback at the end of the year. They get a certificate. It's basically for the parents, demonstrating, yes, they showed up, they wrote all the stories, they integrated the feedback, and then the parent can afford an elective credit. And depending on how much time the student puts into it, parent can assign that to any season that they want, either a half credit or a full credit.
I know I get that question all the time, and I think it is one of those most amazing, valuable things. I've seen it with my own children. Even if you're, again, whether you're going to college or not, your ability to actually take something that you're majorly interested and passionate about and bring it to fruition and to stick with it, to grow with it, is something that sets you apart from everybody else. It's true. It's like, it's not something that, oh, I just had to do this. This is something I'm going above and beyond. And I'm really being focused and learning how to really focus on this craft, this skill. And as I said, I've seen it in my own children, but in also many of the families that I've coached. When you are able to do that, you actually can put that on your transcript. You're literally just logging hours, but you're giving credit because there's actual progress being made. There's actual learning occurring. There's actual skills being learned, and the ability to, even just in your essays, that when you apply to college, I know even like for several of my kids, it got them jobs outside of, even while they were going to college, because their skills, their interests were something that they could see the future employer was like, wow, this kid's not just only going to school, they're really being able to, work on their craft. So
I think that's exactly that is one of the most interesting, exciting points about this is there's real world value, and not just going off and having fun and, oh, there's Junior writing his stories or her stories or whatever, but there's the actual real world value of meeting deadlines, of creating something according to provided specifications, and then integrating the feedback. Those are critical life world, real life experiences that everybody needs to learn to do. And especially if you're somebody who is good at writing, then you need the regular discipline of just having your head in the writing space, of sitting down and actually doing it, and not just, this month I'll do something and I'll take a break for 2 months. Like, no, if you want to get good at it, you need to keep at it. And so that's why this is what we've done here, is structured. And it's not just like, just do it whenever you want, but
right.
there's regular deadlines. So that way there's regular progress.
Well, when you say creative people, tend to, it's like, it's never perfect and I want to keep working on it. So but the real world is like, no, we got to go to press.
That was actually one of the decisions we made early on, was if you're going to participate in this, you have to write your draft, edit it, obviously, and then post it in the community. Don't just send it privately to a teacher. That's valuable too, obviously, but there's actually there's a wonderful sense of value in deciding when it's good enough and then just sharing it, getting it out there, because you'll never actually get better by rerunning it through your own brain, through your own mind. You have to expose it to other people. So find out what makes it good enough and then post it.
So virtues are in this as well. There's an element of humility, there's an element of vulnerability, because writing, any form of expression that comes from deep within, we feel vulnerable to that. So I love the idea, as you're saying, nothing negative, not in the sense that you're, if a person were to, it's always spinning it in a positive way. So for example, if a person is actually, let's say, handing in materials and they're having difficulty with structure and it's not working, you're going to critique it, but in a positive way. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
In the sense that we don't want to crush the spirit, but it's helping a person to understand how to receive constructive criticism. And so I think that's pretty much what you're alluding to, is this idea of constructive criticism, being able to take it, but also learning how to dish it out.
Learning how to read something with an eye for what's working here. And then not just that doesn't work, but why, and then try to comment that.
Yeah, that's very valuable, as you said. And that's something that's like, even if they're not going to become a full-time writer and that's their career, I know writing, and it was, again, that too, I've seen that come to fruition, is that children who have actually learned that skill can get their ability to even express themselves in the verbal sense, and in many ways in their written work, whether they're writing a report for work or this or that, their heads above other people, because they're able to just speak with clarity, with organization that cannot burden the reader. So,
yeah, valuable. I think it's also, and it's kind of a lost art that I hope is coming back, but it's the ability to, it's kind of what we do, I think, in the first half of life, is we define and grow into what's called the calculating mind, the ability to see, to discern, to delineate, to divide, to label. That's extremely important. It's how we survive. But then there's an art that needs to be learned in the second half of life, which is the contemplative mind. And it's the ability to recognize there's all of these things that are me, not me, and so on, but then to be able to not react to them, to allow things to be what they are, allow people to be what they are, to not to react, but to see who is God in this person, in this story that maybe I dislike. Well, what's a good thing that's in it? To step back from my initial reaction and allow something to be what it is. I say that's a fundamental human art or skill that everybody needs to learn. But I see, in a particular way, I think that authors kind of get a leg up, and artists as well, maybe, but get an opportunity to start practicing that. Because when we're creating characters, this is the fun thing. When you're creating characters in a world, you love those characters from the inside out. You don't love them from the outside in. We run around to people in our parish and everybody else, and we get to know them by how they reveal themselves to us. So we start to like or dislike them from the outside in. But that's not how God loves us. God loves us from the core, from the essence, and then that embraces everything else that we're choosing to express, our personalities and so on. And that's the same thing that we do as sub-creators, is we love our characters from the inside out. Now, especially those characters where that becomes really clear. There are some characters where that is not clear to us, and that's why they're usually not our main characters. I think that when you choose to take that kind of thing seriously, one, you're going to make better character decisions, or how you treat them, how you create those stories. But I think it's also going to make you a better person, because you're exercising something, literally going to a gym and you're flexing muscles, you're exercising within yourself. My character is going through a really hard time right now, and they're making all of these terrible decisions. They're like a light switch away from being the villain of this story. But I know they have it in them to actually turn around. And I've got this situation coming up that's going to turn everything around. And I'm going to handhold them or handwrite them through that process, because I love who they are. Now, if you can take that same attitude and turn around and bring that to your family, or people in ministry, people on the street, or in business, you're functioning out of a contemplative space. You're no longer just judging and, reacting to everything. You're able to let things be what they are and not always trying to interpret, everything.
I know when my daughter went through her own, creative writing course, and again, I would say in many high school programs, we talk about, yes, there's the importance of learning how to write, your academic essays, your persuasive essays, and narrative, and all of those. But that element of creative essays, I think you're so right. It adds this whole other dimension to our ability to really delve deep into humanity, into our own thoughts, but it really gets us outside of ourselves, because, as you said, you're loving people from inside out. You're getting to the core, but it's also you become a better reader, you read for deeper understanding. You now know and understand as you go through the craft of creating a story, you can read a work of literature and start looking at it and understanding and trying to maybe understand why the author made those particular decisions on those characters. And that's incredible. That's an incredible, wonderful gift as well.
And that's why we've got everybody's invited and welcome to please read through, and especially if you join the community, either the adult or the teen, read through or skim through the manifesto sort of course, How to Be a Catholic Author. And they're my thoughts and my notes, obviously, but it's because I not only love the craft of creative writing, I don't see it as being just another hobby. Like, I'm just going to go do this on the weekends. Like, I see if this is a distinct passion and an energy that you have and you want to invest in, then that's probably telling you something about yourself, about how you were made, and maybe what you're called to do with that. I see being an author is, like I said, you're a key that is meant to unlock something in this world. And by pursuing this craft and getting good at it, and by introspecting and by contemplating and then writing and putting it out and sharing with others, I think it is a path, like a spiritual path, by which you start to understand God and Christ and spirituality from the inside out. It's a way for you to change and to exercise and to grow and to become more open to grace and to transformation. And then maybe come and share that. So again, if you're a key, you're meant to unlock a certain door. God has a certain message or a certain insight, and it might just be one story that you write 20 years from now, but it's distilled with so much thought and introspection and inspiration, so I see it as an extremely important spiritual path. Others will find, will work out their salvation and fear and trembling and doing other things. But I think authors, it's not just a hobby. It can actually be something thrilling and exciting. It can be absolutely private and something you never share. Usually, though, you create art to communicate and to share, with others.
So I know we talked about this, and next week, so if anybody's listening to this now, we'll also put links at the bottom here, below this video, to learn how to get involved immediately. And you do have because there'll be parents listening to this who I think are, closet authors, ones who maybe want to express themselves in that way too. So we have the Catholic author for the parents, and then for the teens. All of that will be on, again, just remind us of that website. It's CatholicAuthor.us. Is that correct?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Great. And then also, you have, and again, to get into that writer program, which is the more deeper dive, you're going to do a workshop, a free workshop for our community. Is that right? Next week?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Largely, we'll talk about how the program works again, answer questions, field questions from people. We can talk about the contest, and mostly what we'll do is go over some of the key points that are talked about in How to Be a Catholic Author.
How to Be a Catholic Author. So that, I think it's a great name of the workshop, How to Be a Catholic Author Workshop. And that will be a free workshop that we certainly will let people know in our community. And I really encourage people to do that.
Yeah, please have a read through it, before, so that I welcome your questions and your objections and your thoughts and your sidebars,
Yeah, I'll put the question in the community and see if we can get put it as an event and have some preloaded questions. And I'm sure this has been very exciting. This has got probably many heads spinning. And I know, we hope and pray that people will share this with, as we said, this all came from the incredible, beautiful talent of our Catholic teens, this ability to express themselves. And we're trying to give them that, a place, a safe place to do that is centrally tied to our faith as well. That's at the core. Any parting words on this? Because this is, as I said, been so delightful to speak with you, because on a personal level and our collaboration, and I'm excited for the journal that will be coming out from this, being able to share. Mm-hmm.
Key advice, I think. I once read a little, it was an anecdote in a book and the author was describing somebody she was an artist. What she would do is she would go dive off into a barrier reef somewhere to experience, life with the sharks and the moray eels and the fish. And she would put herself deliberately in positions of danger. Because what she wanted to do when she came back out from that, and she wanted to find out what those experiences would elicit in her, what would emerge, what would come from putting herself in these specific situations. And I don't know exactly the art she went on to create. That fascinated me, that idea. And one of the episodes we did on Silhouettes of the Truth, the guest made that same point. The ideas for stories that you get come from when you're out and about doing things and not when you're actually sitting and writing the stories. So if you're a key that unlocks something in the world, you need to be trying that key in a whole bunch of different locks to find out which is the right door, because we're not given the door, we're just given the key, and then we have to figure that out. So what does that mean? Do things. Authors should be busy, engaged, interactive, dealing with people. If you're very introspective, extrovert or introvert. If you're an introvert, find your own way of doing that. Learn things, find your own way to experience things. But that's the only way that you'll get the different experiences that are going to enrich you, so that when you then turn to go write your characters and write your stories, you're an ever growing and enriching, source of material. So keep writing. That's obviously an important one. Keep reading, always read, especially authors that you like, and then try to think about why you like them. And then probably copy them. It's really important to just straight up copy their style so that you can then figure out your own. And then 3, watch movies. That's really important. That's a huge thing today. Watch all the movies, know what's popular. If you dislike it, find out why other people like it, why it's popular, and then what's good about it. Because there's almost always something good in everything,
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah, I was watching a movie recently with my child, said screenwriters are the unsung heroes of movies. How many times do you actually remember who wrote that? And yet what would the actors, and even if you've done the acting and the casting, I'm just like, how come we don't remember who wrote that story? Because the words are so beautiful. So, yep. Well, Dominic, again, what a joy to speak with you on this.
Thank you, Paola.
I love this project. I love what's going to grow from this. I know that it is a beautiful, beautiful experience, again, for the authors and for the teens. And I thank you so much for taking the time today with me. And I look forward to that workshop. So I want to thank everybody for watching today. And again, please share this video with your friends. Do come and visit CatholicAuthor.us. You'll also, if you are a member of the Catholic Homeschool Community, and if you're not, please do join CatholicHomeschoolCommunity.com. There's the articles, all the information is in the community as well. So thank you once again, and may God bless you abundantly. Bye now.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. Thank you, and have a blessed day.